Brachot, Daf Ches, the 8th Daf of Brachot. The first one is the idea of redemption coming through communal prayer and how we are redeemed and it saves the world, and also the connection between Torah, Avoda, which is the temple service, and today prayer, and acts of loving kindness. So let's take a look at the Talmud. The Gemara says, Rabbi Nassan said, Minayin she'ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu mos b'tfilasan shel rabim. How do we know that God will not despise the prayers of the community? Shenemar, as the verse says, Hein al kavir lo yimas. The kavir refers to the work of the heart, that God will not be disgusted and turn them away from them. Siv pada b'shalom nashi mikravli, and it says, my soul has been redeemed in peace from battle because kibarabim hayu imadi, because the people were with me. Meaning, in this case, it's interpreted to mean when there's a communal element to the prayer, that's how the Talmud is interpreting it, it's more likely to be received. Omar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He, says, Kol ha'osik b'Torah v'gemilas chasadim u'mispalel imat tzibur. Whoever studies Torah, does acts of kindness, and prays with the community in a synagogue, with a minyan. Maila ani alav kilu pada'ani li levane b'bein umas olam. I consider it as if He redeemed me and my children from amongst the nations of the world. Amar Ashlakish, Kol mi sheyesh lo beis hakneses bi'iro. Ashlakish said, whoever has a synagogue in their town, ve'ena nichnas sham l'spalal, nikra shachin ra, doesn't go in to pray with his neighbors, is called a bad neighbor. And then he brings a proof text for that. Furthermore, the Gemara says, by not going to Shul, you cause exile for you and your descendants. Pretty harsh words. Okay, so let's talk for a moment about this idea of the importance of going to Shul. And not just that it's important, but that somehow it saves the world. Seems like a pretty big, bold statement to say. So there's a parallel to this in the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, where it says, Al shlosha dvarim ha'olam omed al atar v'alavod v'al gemilas chasad. And the Torah, the world is standing on three things: Torah, service, the temple service, which is prayer is in its place, and acts of kindness. Clearly, we know that we have to act kindly towards other people, and Torah could also mean justice. And if there's no justice, there's no peace, and there's chaos. But why the avoda? Why the temple service? And the answer is that of all the three things, the avoda represents the linkage between heaven and earth. In other words, Torah, it makes sense. Every government has a system of laws. They may have a version of their Torah or constitution in which their principles are grounded in, and that keeps certain order in society. So people will say, even an atheist will say, you need to have laws to keep order. However, when it comes to avoda, when it comes to service, that's when it gets a little trickier. It's not that the avoda, it's not that the spiritual service is just a function of keeping order in society. Although atheists have been arguing that lately, since they can't seem to find much reason for religion, one of the latest theories is that religion gave birth to smaller groups or tribes becoming supergroups that were even bigger than one location. Interesting theory. Obviously, there's a little bit of truth in that religion does give rise to a supergroup. But in that sense, yes, religion is the secret sauce that holds society together, and also sometimes can tear on the fabric of society when different religions come into conflict, just like nationhood holds a group together and also comes into conflict when there's either a war between nations or there's nationalism that gives rise to antagonism to somebody who's not seen as nationalistic in terms of their origins or their color or their look or whatever it is that the majority decides is the so-called look of what that particular country is supposed to be like. And we certainly know very well about the discriminatory elements of both nationalism and religion. And we also know that they could be wonderful things within the right context. So let's talk a little bit about the right context of this idea of avoda, of service. When people come together, when they pray together, when you pray as an individual, you're essentially praying for whatever it is that you need. However exalted you are and however great you are, it's a very personal thing. And while prayer, in a sense, is personal, it needs to rise to the group. It needs to create a whole group of people bringing themselves close to God. And that idea is that there's two elements of the Torah. Rabbi Akiva and Hillel both taught respectively that the primary element of the Torah is loving one another, and included in that love of one another is also our ability to love God as well. Because when we love one another, then we can be saying to be loving the source, the common father figure of us all, which is God. So in that sense, the avoda, the service, the spiritual service that has a communal element is the beginning of redemption. It's the beginning of getting out of dispersal into our individual corners. There is something nice about being in your individual corner, your own individuality. And that might be the whole reason why we came into exile. I remember Rabbi Avraham Brandwein teaching the following teaching, a very powerful teaching, one of my great teachers, a great Kabbalah scholar of blessed memory. He said the following. He said that we are blessed to be, to the descendants of Abraham and Sarah and so on, are blessed to be like the sand of the sea and like the stars of the night. Well, I can look outside my window. I can't see stars, but I can see some glittering light. It's not menorahs because Hanukkah is now over, sadly enough. What it is you're seeing is New Jersey. I'm looking out over the Henry Hudson, and we're looking at it's the closest thing that I can see to stars from this vantage point. So what is a star? A star is something that shines because it's dark. So Rabbi Brandwein explained the following. When we are in a state of exile, it gives each one of us individuality, like a star, and the ability to shine. But the problem is it's night, and everybody knows at night, you can't see. There's still a very powerful missing element because of the evening. And that's when the other blessing of Abraham's descendants, which is to be like the sand of around the shore of the sea. Sand is sticky, that clings together. What that represents is the level of coming together. So as powerful as it is to be a star, and everybody wants to be a star today, everybody wants to say, look at me. In fact, if I didn't want people to look at me, I wouldn't be making this video right now, right? So clearly we all want to, say something and be significant and important, but yet there's something very missing in just our quest for individuality, even spiritual individuality in prayer, and that is the coming together. So that's why prayer as a community is the beginning of redemption. And if we don't pray together, even though you might be very spiritually evolved, you're lacking in unity, you're lacking in redemption, and you're a bad neighbor. It's not good for the neighborhood for that, and you also cause to further the disconnection, and individualism, as great as it is, it does not promote community. And we need to have strong individuals, but we also need to be able to come together. And this Talmud is not so much focused right now on the individuality. Eventually we'll get to that. But it's focused right now on the klal, on the community, because we're talking about tefillah b'tzibur, praying in the community. Let us continue to number 2, which is blessing for a long life if you live in Israel, or frequent shul. What's the connection? That is number 2. So let's do that inside. Rabbi Yochanan said, or they said to Rabbi Yochanan, they asked Rabbi Yochanan, Ika Sabi beBavel, are there old people in Babylonia? Tama v'amar laman yirbu. It wasn't a question. They told him there are old people in Bavel, and he wondered about that, and he said, doesn't it say laman yirbu yemechem v'yemei v'nechem al ha'adama? Right, in the Shema it says, in order that you and your descendants should live a long life on the land, meaning the blessings of living a long life are connected to living in the land of Israel. But if you live outside the land of Israel, you don't get that blessing of a long life. Now, the answer is Kivan de Amar Le. They responded to Rabbi Yochanan, they told him that Mikadmi Machashki Lebeknisha, the people get up early and they stay out late in the synagogues. Amar Hainu de Ahanilahu. He said that's the reason why that's helped them have a long life. And he quotes another rabbi, Bishubman Levi, that tells his children, get up and go out again in the evening, get up in the morning and go to the synagogue in order that you have a long life. Okay, so what is the connection between the blessing of a long life, living in the land of Israel, and going to shul a lot? So the obvious answer is living in the land, you're with your people, you're protected, you have your family and friends around you, but that's all like a very practical answer, and I'm not a practical person. So we got to come up with something a little more. So let's talk about the idea of Kedusha, the idea of sanctity. Sanctity is what gives a person purpose beyond just their physical life. And there's a type of sanctity that's associated with Artseinu HaKadosha, our holy land, but equally, or actually not equally, but parallel to it, is the idea of the base, the Mikdash Ma'at, the mini temple, that a synagogue and a house of study, and we're going to talk about the distinction in the next one, they also have a certain Kedusha in them. So by being in this place of Kedusha, that adds energy to the person, spiritual energy, and so there's a trickle-down effect, and it could actually result. You might find that the people who go to shul might actually, they say their studies are that it's not particularly a Jewish study, but people who belong to a congregation tend to live a longer life than people who are not affiliated with a congregation. Okay, let's go on to number 3. Number 3 is after the destruction of the temple, God only lives in the walls of Halacha, Torah, and its relationship with Tefillah. Let's take a look at the Gemara. The Gemara says, I'm skipping a little bit. I'm going to come number 4. I'm usually pretty much sticking to the order of the page. There's a reason why, because it's not chronologically connected. So I'm skipping over 4. I'll come back to that. But number 3 is as follows. Rabbi Chisda says, "My dichsiv, what is the meaning of what is written? Ohev Hashem Sha'arei Tzion Mikol Mishkanos Yaakov. God loves the gates of Zion from all the dwelling places of Jacob." What does that mean? Ohev Hashem, this is the interpretation of the Gemara, Sha'arim Hametziyanim B'Halacha. God loves the gates that are like perfected or doing right the study, the understanding of halacha. Yosem mibate knesios mibate midrashos, more than synagogues and regular study halls. V'hainu de Amar Rabbi Chia bar Ami Mishmei De'ula. That's with what this particular rabbi says. Miyom shechar beis hamikdash ein lo lahakadosh baruch hu be'olama ela arba amas shel halacha b'vad. After the destruction of the temple, God only has one home. God's home are the 4 cubits of law. In other words, God lives within the law. Wow, that's a very powerful statement. God lives within the law. Now, especially people who want to have a free-hearted and kind of loving relationship with God, who, either believe in halacha but don't pay that much attention to it, or those who never pay any attention to halacha, this is a very kind of jarring statement. God dwells specifically and only in the context of the halachic conversation. So I have a very, very important thing to say about this, and I don't like to say that too often, only once in a while, and that is that the Beis HaMikdash, the temple, one of the aspects of the temple is that it manifested Kedusha, it manifested an intense holiness in the avoda, in the work in the Beit HaMikdash. We no longer have a temple, but what Halacha does is it takes divine reality and it appropriates it into practice. That's what I believe Halacha is. It's taking divine elements, divine aspects, and concretizing them. Some people can't relate to one God, so they have idolatry. We understand that there's only one God. There's no need to worship a variety of gods polytheistically and so on. But we still need to be able to relate to him. So we found a methodology. God found a methodology after the temple was destroyed, and that's called halacha. That's hopefully what we'll do during the course of this year, is occasionally I'll be able to point out what I'm talking about. So it's a thesis that I'm giving you no proof for right now. You don't have to trust me. Come back later and say, Rabbi, can you verify this concept? I will do that when we get to the laws of Sukkot, for example, when we get to the laws of Shabbat, and I will do that throughout this tractate of Brachot as well. If I forget to do that, remind me. I'm not necessarily going to do it every night, but I will. I don't want to drive certain people crazy, or like, enough with that theory. They got it, they agree, they disagree, move on. So that is the concept of why I think God dwells within halacha. The only other thing he seems to really dwell in is the reminder of the sanctity of the temple service. And that's really connected to kind of the image of the temple within the heart and the mind, which is really what Tractate Brachot really deals with very much. Okay, let's talk about the difference in terms of where somebody should pray. So, the Rambam paskins, the Rambam doesn't make the distinction between a house of study and a house where they study the law. He just says it's preferable to spend time to pray in a place where one studies. Let me pull out a very special sefer by Rabbi Joseph Soloveitchik, Rishima Shiurim. I've done this with you already before. My good friend and one of my teachers, Rabbi Reichman, wrote this based on the Shiurim, based on the lectures of Rabbi Joseph Soloveitchik, the most famous and celebrated rabbi of modern Orthodoxy in the United States and beyond. So here's what it says. I'm going to just find. So Rabbi Soloveitchik makes the following point, that perhaps when it comes to the temple, the Beis HaMikdash, we find 2 elements of sanctity in the Beis HaMikdash. One is the sanctification of the home in which sacred events took place, sacred actions took place, and arguably that already existed, Rabbi Soloveitchik says, in the earlier versions of the temple, whether it was the one in Nov or Shiloh or the Mishkan, the moving tabernacle in the desert when the Jews were wandering in the desert for 40 years, that was a bias kadosh, that was a holy home, as opposed to the Beis HaMikdash became not just a holy home, it had an added element of being a makom kodesh. The place itself is holy. Therefore, there's a concept that when the place itself is holy, that it's not just the walls, and it's not just while it's active in service, it's even just holy more intensely. So Rabbi Soloveitchik wants to borrow that concept and move it over to make a distinction with the holiness of the area that halacha is discussed and learned. Since halacha is koveya, it establishes a stronger sense of divine presence, therefore the place where halacha is studied, Rabbi Soloveitchik argues, has a greater degree of sanctity, and it would require one to actually have to pray there. In fact, Rabbi Soloveitchik does point out that there seems to be a debate about the same thing. It may or may not be exactly the same. Rabbi Soloveitchik makes the point that there are ways to learn that it's kind of semi-different conversation, but at face value, the Gemara elsewhere argues about which one is greater, the sanctity of the study hall versus the sanctity of a synagogue. Not exactly the classification of the halachic place of study. Again, a little bit different than our Gemara. Question is whether it impacts our Gemara or not. So we're now going to continue, and there's a lot on this, but time does not permit us to really delve into the depth of it right now, because this is a class that needs to move. Torah and its relationship with tefillah. I can't skip that over. That is too important for me to skip. What is the relationship between Torah and tefillah? So let's say the following thing. Torah is learning God's will, and tefillah is expressing your desire to get close to God. And a lot of people have talked about whether the difference is the direction, meaning the prayer is going from you to God, and the Torah is going from God to you. But there's another element. Torah, you use your head. Tefillah, you use your heart. And the question is, this is one of my favorites, is are you connecting the two? They're both forms of clarifying your intentions and your devotion to the highest purpose of your existence, which is ultimately God. Those who don't like to say God, it's what is the purpose that you exist for? What were you created here to do in this world other than just exist? And in fact, that could be something that motivates you to make the world a better place, which is ultimately coming from believing in the world, which means you believe the world exists for a purpose, which ultimately means you believe that the world was put here for a reason, that you were put here for a reason. So in that sense, the Torah gives us insight into understanding that, and our prayer helps us delve deeper into our own feelings about what it is that's true for us and what's important and what we really need and are asking out of life and need divine assistance for. So that's a little bit about the relationship between Torah and tefillah. In other words, you want to connect both, have elements, shared elements that enhance one another. And the very Masechta Brachos, the very Tractate Brachos, is really only about one thing and one thing only. It's about bringing Torah and tefillah together. It's showing us the source of prayer in the rabbinic and biblical traditions, and it's bracketing the biblical prayer with rabbinic blessings and intentions, and it's really giving us the Torah, meaning the understanding of what prayer is, and the Kabbalah is giving us of why we're praying, and the Talmud is telling us how to pray, and the technicalities of prayer. Okay, so let's continue on to number 4. What should a chassid pray for? Okay, let's look at that at the Gemara. There's multiple choice questions. What should a chassid pray to find? A woman. B, Torah. C, death. D, burial. E, a bathroom. I don't know how a bathroom. It's going to be a bathroom because when you got to go, you got to go. But let's talk a little bit about a woman, a Torah, death, and burial. So the Gemara says on the verse Al Zosi spell Kol Chasid Elecha Le'es Matzo. On this, every chassid, every pious person should pray to the time to find. So there are four opinions. Rabbi Chanina says, what does that mean? Le'is matzo isha. It's about finding the right woman. Like it says, matza isha matzatov. If you found a woman, you found goodness. In fact, Marava in Israel, kinasiv inish itza, when a man would marry a woman, amir lehachi matza motze. They would say, did you find somebody good or did you find somebody bitter? Okay, there's a whole question of why they have to say that. Who would actually say that to somebody? Rabbi Nassan Omer le'es matzo zutar. B is, Rabbi Nassan says, what is it that you're looking to find? You're looking to find Torah. And C is misa. It's death. And they bring, each one brings a respective proof text. Now that's A, B, C. Now we get to D, is kvura, burial, and now we get to E, is beis hakisei, and amar b'marava hadamar demar zutra adifa me'ikulu. That opinion that says it's a bathroom, that's the best of them all. Wow. Let's talk about this for a minute. Wild stuff. Okay, I actually was discussing this with a friend today. I was talking to him. He's, looking to get to meet the right person, and a part of our conversation is like really talking about who he needs in his life and finding the right person. And he actually helped me come up with this insight because he asked me if Torah helps you deal with kind of the issues that a person is facing, if Torah fills in some of the psychological needs that one has that we're usually looking for in validation in other people, if Torah has an element of that. And what I said is yes and no, that there's some parts of Torah that give you a real sense of satisfaction and help you understand your place in life and make you feel really great and lift you up. But there are other parts of Torah that, simply put, you're doing your obligation, but you're not feeling elevated because of it. And it's not maybe spiritually, unbeknownst to you, it's helping you and protecting you. But in terms of a simplistic answer of, that Torah fills me, fulfills me, nah, it doesn't seem so. And I said, my friend, you just made me understand the Talmud into the shiur that I'm going to give later today. Because the Talmud says, is a pious person looking for a woman or is he looking for Torah? And you say to yourself, what does that mean? A woman, we all know, you're not just looking for any woman, you're looking for the right woman. It's very hard to find the right woman. Finding a woman is hard enough, but finding the right woman for you, that is really hard. And I said, that's what it means. You gave me the insight, my friend, to what it means by asking me the right questions. That Torah is like finding the right woman. What part of Torah, how you study it, who you study it with, does it inspire you? Does it lift you up? Does it culminate in some sense of knowing either the Halacha or knowing how to make you a better person? These are real valid questions that the Torah scholar or even just the regular person who wants to have a relationship with God through Torah has to ask himself. And that's why it's a search. And that reminds me of, even though it's a mitzia, which means you find it almost sometimes unexpectedly, we say yogaita umatsasa ta'amin, that only somebody who works and then finds, should we believe, that they found something, but it's only because they worked on this. So that could be the connection and relationship between looking for the right woman and looking for Torah. The next two are a little harder. What is it with death and burial? So the answer would be that we're looking for death, meaning we're looking not just in the moment. A lot of times when we act a certain way, we're trying to enjoy life of the moment, but we're not thinking about like, what are they going to say about me at my funeral? Meaning, what am I going to leave? What's the legacy that will live beyond my physical existence? So that's the idea of looking to death, which means dying in a way that I could feel like I've done my mission on life. Okay, that makes a little bit of sense, but what makes almost no sense is the burial, to wait to be finally buried. That's a little bit harder, but perhaps what it means is that even after a person's death, at least till after the burial, if not even longer, there's a certain respect. The commentaries say, are they already speaking Lashon Hara about you? You can't defend yourself. You're just in the ground. They haven't even finished throwing all the dirt, that like shoveling in the dirt, and people are already talking about you. So you have to look not just to the moment of death, but even a little bit further. Create a legacy for yourself that lasts beyond life and a little bit into your past your death itself. That would be explaining that opinion. And finally, the bathroom. I mean, let's face it, everyone needs to have a bathroom. They didn't have running water, so for them to have an outhouse in close proximity to where they lived, that was a big deal. And that might simply mean there's certain things we need in life. You have to have them there. There's no question about it. So I know there's mystical meanings in that, but I'm not looking for one. I'm just looking for a working bathroom. Let's go on to number 6. No, actually, I think I skipped. Did I skip one? I think I might have skipped one. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I just did number 4. Now we do number 5. Number 5 is one who benefits from his own hard labor. Somebody who has a job that's challenging, and that's what they do to make a living, or anything a good, honest living. That person is greater than one who fears God, and that is like probably hard. People sitting in Kollel, and those are the good ones who are God-fearing Jews, must be wondering, really, somebody who just goes to work and makes a good, honest living, and that's better than somebody who's dedicated their life to like serving God. It's a very strange statement. To understand this, I turn to one of my favorite Hasidic philosophers and Rebbes, the Mea Shiloach, the Ishbitzer Rebbe. The Mea Shiloach says the following. He doesn't say it particularly about here, but he just says it in general. He says there's 2 elements that are at odds with one another. One is divine revelation, that God is everything and everywhere, and we don't have any free will. And the stronger God's presence is, the more it's clear to us that we can't do anything in the world. It's almost like, I think there's a Eastern philosophy called, somebody help me out here, the Tao. And in the Tao, it's not so much about like radical like change in the world. It's just kind of recognizing what is. So in that sense, if you were to have the full awareness of God's presence, you would just be more in tune with the way things are the way they need to be, because God is behind it all. Yet God conceals himself, and we don't necessarily feel his presence. And that is what, on the other hand, the other side of the coin, is it gives us our drive to sustain ourselves. We take care of the world. We take care of the people that we love because we understand that if we don't do it, no one else will. So that might be what it means, that as powerful as it is to have a world where people recognize God and are God-fearing, it's even more necessary for people to not see God in everything, so they actually take steps to make the world a better place on their own and don't rely on miracles. Okay, that's the Ishbitzer on number 5 about why somebody who works for a living is better than somebody who fears God. Number 6 is how to be mavir Sedra. What does it mean to be mavir Sedra? So the Gemara says here, at the bottom of Chesam Aleph, and then it goes into Chesam Beis, Amar Rab Ami, Le'olam Yashlam Adam Parshiyosav Imat Tzibur Shnayim Mikra Ve'echad Targum. A person should always conclude their study of the Torah portion with the communal reading. They should have done 2 times reading the verse, and then 1 the Targum. The Targum is usually understood to be the Targum Onkelos that's on the side of almost all Chumashim. The Gemara discusses that on the top of the next page of Chesamad Beis, and it tells us a couple stories of people would do it. Now here's the question. How are you mavir Sedra? First of all, can you start on Sunday? Can you do the Rishon, Sheni, Shlishi, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday? Or do you do it on Friday afternoon? Or do you do it Shabbos morning? So some people, I think it's Al Pi Kabbalah, suggest that you should do it Friday afternoon, but other people have the custom to do it Rishon, Sheni, Shlishi. I saw the Aruch HaShulchan says that the Rishon, Sheni, Shlishi, whoever made that, he's like, it's not important whoever did that. We know we have it for the Aliyos, but what's really important, what has a real Masorah, is the chapters. And he says we shouldn't go by the Aliyot and divide it up into the week. We should go rather by each chapter. We should do one chapter at a time. We could read through the whole chapter, then read it again, then do the Targum. Also, other people have the custom to do each pasuk twice and then the Targum. Another question is, can we just do the Targum Onkelos? Are there other things we can do? Can we just read English? And that be like in place of the Targum? Some people say yes. A lot of people say no. It has to be a commentary because the Targum, believe it or not, although it seems to be translating into Aramaic, sometimes explains things. So perhaps you could use the Art Scroll Chumash, or you could maybe maybe you could use the Chaim Miller Chumash, because it's not an actual translation. It's more of like a running commentary in what should be the translation. So perhaps you could argue that you could do that. Many of the commentaries in the code say you could do Rashi. So some people say, well, Rashi is problematic. You don't have Rashi in a lot of different verses. But be that as it may, I'd say if you're already doing the most proper way, which is like the Targum, the Onkelos, Rav Haigain brings down that based on the Gemara Megillah, that it should be Targum Onkelos because that was given from Moshe at Sinai, as opposed to the other commentaries that don't have that designation, so to speak. But I would say two things. There's doing it right, but there's also just doing it, which means if you do Rashi, Rav Moshe says, you're fine, don't worry about it. Do Rashi. Don't worry about the stricter opinions. I'm going to say even more. If you, for some reason, want to use another commentary, and even though that other commentary doesn't have everything in it, so for example, this past year I tried to do the Parsha with Torah Tamima. Not so much Brachos, because for some reason I have no need or feeling to do Torah Tamima, the commentary, which is basically bringing down Gemaras and explanations of the Gemaras. But I like doing it on Vayikra, Bamidbar Dvarim. I really felt that was nice. So I try to be mavir Sedra. Sometimes I don't have time to do it properly. So perhaps, arguably, you could use even a more contemporary commentary and do that as well. Again, not everybody believes that. Leave that up to you and your rabbi to figure it out for yourself. That was number 5. Number 6 is the broken tablet. No, I'm sorry, that was number 6. Number 7 is the broken tablet, Alzheimer's and Torah scholars. The Gemara says, V'izharu b'zaken sheshach talmudo. Be careful about an older person that forgot the Torah learning, machmas onso, because of something that happened. Could be illness. Da'amrinan luchos v'shivei luchos menachas ba'aron. Because we say that in the Ark of the Covenant, both the tablets and the broken tablets as well were there together. Meaning what? Meaning, again, Rabbi Soloveitchik explains that it's not just that the Torah that you know and continue to know give you some unique quality because you're able to answer a question or know what to do or give a shir, but rather it imbues the person who studies the Torah with kedushas haguf, with a kedusha in the place of their body. I don't know if he uses the word kedushas haguf, but he uses the word like the sanctity of the object itself becomes holy. The person's body that itself becomes holy. Like the idea of the Shivei Luchos. The Luchos are holy, so even though they're broken, the holiness is still retained within their shards. So today we have increasingly People are living older and older. Eventually, we'll have a shir on end of life and treatment options, if there are ever such a thing, a halachic conversation about that. Not for a quick shir on a daf Talmud for now, but let us just say that this is a total huge issue, and Alzheimer's, for somebody who could have dedicated their life. I remember a very sad story. I went to visit somebody in California, and he told me that his father had been, I believe, in Chachmei Lublin. So he knew the whole Talmud by heart, and he said, but my father forgot my name. He still knew a lot of Talmud by heart, but he doesn't remember me by name anymore. Very heart-wrenching to hear that. So the Torah is telling us, respect that person. Today's society, it's very hard to respect a person. We respect the utilitarian kind of value of what a person does. So that's a thing that has to do with sanctity of and dignity of each human being. That was number 7, and something we need to work on and meet and talk about and assess for ourselves and our loved ones. Number 8 is don't sit on the bed of an aramyein woman. There are at least 3 opinions of what that means. It's kind of controversial. One opinion is that it means not to recite the Shema is like living with the aramyein woman. What the commentaries say, I believe it's the Ben Yehoyada that says it, is that Kriya Shema protects you from sexual urges. And if you don't make it a practice of reading the Shema at night, you're going to be more susceptible to those things. Okay. There are others that are not politically correct. I'll say one of them is literally to not sit on the bed of an aramyein because of a story that would have been like the equivalent of the first blood libel. But anyway, we're not going to do that right now. Let's continue with number 9, because this can take a little bit longer, which is dawn. Is the dawn day or night? So here's what the Gemara says. Tanya Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai Omer. Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai says, Pa'amim she'adam kore kriya shma shtei pa'amim balayla achas kodesh shiyal amud hashachar v'achas la'achas shiyal amud hashachar v'yotze behen yedei chavasel achas shel yom v'achas shel layla. The Gemara says the following. There are times that somebody will read the Shema late at night, let's say right before dawn, and then read the Shema again right after dawn, and they're both times that we would call night, and through those 2 readings they would fulfill their obligation for the night Shema and the morning Shema. So the Gemara asks, well, make up your mind. You're calling it night at the dawn, after dawn is still night, because it's still dark relatively. After dawn, it's still, an hour or so of not complete darkness, but it's still pretty dark till the dawn turns into what we call daybreak, the sun rising, and so on. So the Gemara says, well, technically it's night, but for the reasons of fulfilling your obligations, say Kriya Shema in the morning, because some people get up early, they get up at dawn, you still fulfill your obligation. Okay, so question. Bottom line, is dawn halachically night, as the Gemara seems to indicate, but there's an exception for the reciting of the Shema, because the reciting of the Shema in the morning isn't just about daytime, it's more about time that people get up. Okay, fine. Or is it in fact not the case? Dawn is really technically, biblically speaking, considered daybreak or halachically day. The Gemara in Brachos and Daf Chaf actually brings 2 verses. One of them is more believable in the Talmud's own words, to show that dawn is the halachic day. The problem is, if dawn is the halachic day, why are there so many things that we wait till quite a bit later to do, whether it's putting on tefillin, other things we're going to read about on the 9th page of Brachot. And the answer is because dawn looks like night. People don't think of it as day. It's still pretty dark out, so we wait. But in theory, if there's an emergency, which must be the case here, where the person's about to go out and do something that they can't be able to say the Shema later, they can say it already at dawn. So that would be the halacha that dawn, although it looks like night, and we try to not do things that need to be done during the day till later, under duress or hardship, it actually is technically day. There's a whole conversation of whether there's something called l'chatchila and b'diavad, which means l'chatchila means it's the right way, and b'diavad means if you did it, it's not the way you should have done it. And most of the time we understand that those distinctions are not biblical distinctions, it's a rabbinic distinction. Biblically, either it works or it doesn't work. And the rabbis added in these various kind of layers. But here there's a conversation where perhaps even biblically the preference is really to wait till later, but if you didn't, you were yotze b'diavad, meaning you fulfilled your obligation at least on some level. Okay, number 10, final one for today. Is there a time that could be day or night, depending on your preference in terms of reading the Shema? And the answer is, the Gemara, depending on how you read the Gemara, some people read the next piece of the Gemara as follows. Number 10. Pa'amim sh'adam koreh kriya Shema shtei pa'amim b'yom achas kodem anei tzachama v'achas la'achar anei tzachama v'yotze behen yidei chava. So there are times that somebody reads the Shema 2 times during the day, one before the sun comes up and one after the sun comes up, and they fulfill their obligation. Achas sheyam v'achas shalayla, both of the morning and evening Shema. So the Gemara says, Hagufa kasha, that's a question. Amr pa'amim sh'adam koreh kriya Shema shtei pa'amim b'yom. You call it times that somebody could read the Shema twice during the day, meaning you're calling it day. That would mean that even before the sunrise, it's already day. Then you say that, well, one of those readings could count as the evening reading, which means Amalaylo, it's night. Anyway, the Gemara continues on Amud Beis and says, that's not in this week's Malchus. It continues on Tesam and Aleph. It says, well, the truth is, it is day. Why are we calling it night? Because there are some people that are still sleeping then. So it turns out that if you read these two statements of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai as not mutually exclusive, but both statements that they could be held together, is that there could be a time between dawn and daybreak that you could be considered night and day, depending on whether you are, if you're going to go to sleep, it's still night. If you got up, it's already day. That is one way of reading it. There are other people who don't read it like that. And I thank you all for watching.